My name is therapist Brenda, and I'm here to speak about trauma. In my profession, I've noticed that trauma is both underreported by survivors and underrecognized by service providers. As I look into the DSM-5, it identifies trauma as the exposure to violence that involves death or serious injury to one's physical integrity, or witnessing an event that involves death or injury of another person. The person's response to the event must involve intense fear, helplessness, or horror. Nonetheless, a child's response would be disorganized or an agitated behavior. A typical event that may cause a person to fear for their life or feel helpless is considered violence, sexual, physical, and emotional abuse. I'm going to turn this over to my colleague for her to speak to you about trauma in a different aspect. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Roxana, a clinical therapist here, and I want to just continue on with what therapist Brenda had talked about and kind of go into why the new emphasis or the resurgence of trauma. For the last few years, we were doing a lot of work in getting mental health on the table, and people are a lot more comfortable with it. And we also have had a big push in people understanding that substance abuse is also part of the mental health spectrum. It is also a disorder. What we were running into was that you make successes and then suddenly you have a relapse. And what was constantly coming up was that there was trauma behind a lot of what these people were going through. We were dealing with the immediate issue, but we weren't going back far enough and dealing with past traumas. Now we're kind of concentrating on the trauma as a whole. We're really concerned about not re-traumatizing people, especially when they come in for therapy, and not having them relive events that are going to set them back. We're also aware of environmental trauma when they have to come into a building that might be restrictive and remind them of incidences or places where they didn't feel safe. And safety is an issue. We're also even aware of systemic trauma in just the entities and the different organizations that you have to deal with, all the paperwork, all the lines. So the mental health organization as a whole, or the field as a whole, is very, very much more aware of the role trauma plays in mental health success. We understand now that safety and making a person feel stabilized is an important factor in getting someone to deal with trauma. Also, believe it or not, relaxation and self-regulation is a huge part of dealing with trauma, especially when you're talking about PTSD in particular. That is a very specific type of trauma, but nonetheless, it's one of the major aspects of trauma. And then overall, we want to get these people that are dealing with traumatic events to be able to control them, to own them, that the trauma doesn't run their life, they run the trauma. So at the end, we want the memory to be able to be integrated and the person to have control over the situation, so that the trauma no longer is the entity running their life. So we are excited to get people together to deal with this trauma. Again, like Brenda had mentioned earlier, there's a trauma recovery and empowerment group starting for women in a team, and we're very excited for what is going to happen there. So thank you for your time.